You have already been through something that would have stopped a different man. Maybe it cost you a relationship. Maybe it cost you a position you had spent years building. Maybe it cost you money, time, or a version of yourself you thought was permanent. Whatever it was, you went through it, and you are still here. But here is the thing that no one talks about. Getting through something difficult does not automatically tell you what to do next. A man can survive a great deal and still arrive on the other side without a clear sense of what the experience was for, what it changed, and how to use what it revealed about him. Most men who have been genuinely tested carry one of two things forward: either the weight of what they lost, which slowly shapes every decision they make from a place of protection rather than intention, or a restless drive to rebuild as fast as possible, to prove to themselves and everyone else that the setback did not define them. Both of those responses are understandable. Neither of them is a blueprint. What you are about to hear has been used by men who carried the weight of an empire, a failing campaign, the loss of everything they had built, and the betrayal of people they trusted, not to recover. To build something that difficulty itself made possible, something that was not available before the test. That is the difference between a man who survives his hardest moments and a man who uses them. What follows is the framework the Stoics developed for exactly that distinction: the man who has not yet processed what happened. There is a specific pattern that appears in men who have been through something significant and have not yet found a framework for what to do with it. On the surface, they look fine. They are functional. They are often highly capable. They have rebuilt enough to appear whole to the people around them. But underneath, there is a persistent unease that surfaces in specific ways. They are risk-averse in ways they were not before. Not because the risk is objectively greater, but because the last time they extended themselves fully, it cost them something they did not see coming. So they hedge. They commit partially. They stay close to what is guaranteed rather than what is possible. Or they go the other way. They push harder and faster than the situation requires, driven by a need to put enough distance between themselves and what happened that they no longer have to feel the weight of it. They call it ambition. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is avoidance, wearing ambition's face. There is also a third pattern that is less visible but more costly. The man who has processed the event intellectually, who can describe what happened, what he learned, and what he would do differently, but who has not integrated it emotionally. He knows what the experience meant. He has not yet felt what it changed. And the result is a strange disconnect between the clarity he can articulate and the decisions he actually makes under pressure. Carl Jung spent decades studying this specific gap. He observed that what a man refuses to feel does not disappear. It shapes his behavior from below the surface, influencing the choices he thinks he is making rationally, while actually being driven by the emotional weight of what he has not yet allowed to settle. The Stoic framework begins not with action, but with honest assessment. Not what did I survive, but what did the experience actually change in me? What did it reveal that I did not know before? And what is the most accurate understanding I now have of myself, of what I can carry, and of what I was wrong about? That assessment is not comfortable, but it is the foundation of everything that follows. Because the man who does not know clearly what he is building on will keep making decisions from the old architecture, the architecture that existed before the test, rather than from the new one that the test revealed. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Being one, after being tested, begins with seeing clearly what the test showed, not what you wish it had shown, what it actually revealed. That honesty, applied without cruelty and without defensiveness, is the first stone of the blueprint. What the test was actually for. Most men frame their hardest experiences as obstacles, things that happened on the way to where they were going, that slowed them down, knocked them off course, or forced a detour they would not have chosen. The Stoics framed them differently, not as obstacles on the path, as the path itself. This distinction is not semantic. It changes everything about how a man approaches what he carries forward. Marcus Aurelius lost children. He managed a military campaign that stretched over years with no clear end. He watched trusted advisors undermine the empire he was trying to protect. He dealt with a widespread public health crisis that killed vast numbers of people across the cities under his care. And through all of it, he kept returning to one question in his private journal. Not why is this happening, but what does this ask of me? That question reframes the experience from something being done to you into something being asked of you. And the answer, in Stoic thinking, is always the same in structure, even when different in content. The experience asks you to develop what it required you to develop in order to get through it. The capacity you built surviving it is the thing the experience was for. A man who lost a business and rebuilt it does not just have a new business. He has a specific understanding of what breaks, why it breaks, and how to build more intelligently the second time. That understanding was not available before the loss. It was produced by it. And if he recognizes it as the actual output of the experience, rather than treating the loss as pure cost and the recovery as simply returning to where he was, he has something that most men in his position never claim. A man who went through the end of a long relationship and came out the other side does not just have his freedom back. He has a much more accurate understanding of what he actually needs, what he was willing to tolerate that he should not have been, and what he genuinely values in another person when the early energy of a new relationship has faded. That understanding was produced by the experience. It belongs to him, but only if he recognizes it as an asset rather than carrying it as a wound. Seneca wrote that difficulties are the teacher we did not choose but cannot afford to ignore. Not because suffering is inherently valuable, but because the specific capacities a man develops in the process of navigating real difficulty cannot be developed any other way. They are not available through reading, through preparation, or through the imitation of other people's experience. They are earned through the thing itself. The descent into oneself is difficult, but it is where the real material lives. The man who has been through something real and who can identify precisely what capacities that experience produced, not what it cost, but what it gave him that nothing else could, is holding the first piece of the blueprint. He knows what he is made of in a way that comfort could never have shown him. And that knowledge, used correctly, is not just useful. It is the foundation that everything stable is eventually built on. The three things the blueprint requires. A blueprint is not a motivation. It is not a vision board or a list of goals. It is a structural document. It shows what goes where, what bears the weight, and what connects to what. The Stoic blueprint for a man who has been tested is built on three specific things. The first is an accurate inventory, not an optimistic inventory, not a pessimistic one, an accurate one. What does this man actually have now? Not what he had before the test, not what he is trying to rebuild to. What does he have right now, in the form it actually takes? This includes what he knows that he did not know before. The specific hard-earned understanding of himself, of people, of how things actually work rather than how he assumed they did. It includes the relationships that held under pressure, the people who showed up when it was inconvenient, who did not disappear when the circumstances became difficult. And it includes his own demonstrated capacity. The fact that he went through something and is still standing tells him something precise about what he can carry. That is not a small thing. Most men undervalue it because it came at a cost. But it is real, and it is his. The second thing the blueprint requires is a revised understanding of what actually matters. A man who has been through something serious has usually had the experience of watching certain things he thought were important become irrelevant under pressure, while other things he had taken for granted became the only things that mattered. That reordering, the revision of what genuinely counts versus what counted in the version of his life that existed before the test, is extraordinarily valuable if he honors it. Most men, once the immediate pressure passes, drift back toward the old prioritization. The things that seemed unimportant during the crisis start to feel important again once the crisis is over. The clarity fades. The urgency of what actually matters softens back into the background noise of ordinary life, and the man loses access to the insight the experience produced. The Stoic practice here is deliberate. Before the clarity fades, while the experience is still recent enough to remember clearly what it felt like when only certain things mattered, write it down. Not as a lesson, as a commitment. This is what I will not trade again. This is what I will not postpone. This is what I now know was never as important as I made it. The third thing is a decision about direction that is made from the new self, rather than the old one. This is perhaps the most important and most commonly skipped piece. A man who has been tested often makes his next set of decisions from the same goals, values, and identity he had before the test, simply because those were the goals, values, and identity he had. But the test may have changed some of them. It may have revealed that certain goals were not actually his, but were inherited or assumed. It may have shown him that certain values he thought he held were not actually operating in his decisions under pressure. The man who takes the time to ask, which of my current goals would I choose again, knowing what I know now, and which are simply inertia, that man is building from an honest foundation. The man who does not ask that question is rebuilding the same structure on ground that has shifted beneath it. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. What you would be after being tested is not the same answer as what you would have said before. And that difference, honored rather than avoided, is the most direct path to building something that actually fits the man you have become, rather than the man you were. How Marcus Aurelius used his own difficulty. Marcus Aurelius is remembered as a philosopher-emperor. What is less often discussed is that his philosophy was not developed in comfort. It was developed in the middle of one of the most demanding and loss-filled periods of his reign. He did not write the Meditations during peaceful years of reflection. He wrote them during a military campaign in the field, dealing with the daily weight of command and the ongoing reality of people failing him, the empire straining under pressure, and the accumulated losses of a life that had cost him far more than most men ever face. What he was doing in those journals was exactly the blueprint this video describes. He was taking honest inventory of what he actually had: his reason, his character, his capacity to choose his response regardless of circumstance. He was revising, repeatedly and deliberately, his understanding of what actually mattered. And he was making decisions about direction that were grounded in his clearest available self, rather than in what he wished were true, or what the world expected of him. He wrote about his failures without excusing them. He wrote about the people who disappointed him without using their failures to justify his own. He wrote about what he could not control with a discipline that was not passive resignation, but active redirection, taking every ounce of energy that would otherwise go toward what he could not change and placing it entirely on what he could. What is remarkable about the Meditations is not that they are the product of a great man. What is remarkable is that they are the product of a man who was clearly, repeatedly, and genuinely struggling, and who was using the struggle as the material rather than as the obstacle. He was not waiting to have his life resolved before he became who he intended to be. He was becoming that person in the middle of the unresolved. That is the core of what the Stoic blueprint offers a man who has been tested. Not a path back to what was, not a faster route to what he originally planned, a framework for using what he now has, the hard-won clarity, the demonstrated capacity, the revised understanding of what matters, to build something that was not possible before the test, something that only the tested version of him can build. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That standard, applied not to grand decisions, but to the daily, ordinary choices of a man building from tested ground, is what keeps the blueprint honest. Not every decision needs to be heroic, but every decision that is right and every word that is true adds one more layer to a foundation that difficulty itself prepared. The man on the other side. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of having used your experience rather than simply survived it. He is not the version that looks like you did before the test. He does not have the same assumptions about what is guaranteed, the same trust extended automatically, or the same relationship with what he can control. He has been revised by what he went through, and that revision, far from being a loss, is his greatest advantage. This man makes decisions more slowly than he used to, not because he is less confident, but because he knows more clearly what a wrong decision actually costs. He extends trust more carefully, not because he has become suspicious, but because the experience showed him the difference between trust given on assumption and trust given on evidence. He pursues fewer things than he used to, but with more of himself available for each one, because he has learned the cost of being spread across everything while genuinely present for nothing. He does not need the external markers of success in the same way he once did, not because he has stopped caring about results, but because the test showed him something about the difference between outcomes and integrity. He learned, in a way that cannot be unlearned, that doing the right thing in the right way is the only part of the outcome that was ever fully his. Everything else was always partly luck, partly other people's choices, partly timing. He was only ever responsible for the quality of his own action. The test clarified that, and clarity of that kind, once it arrives, does not leave. He is more honest than he was, with himself and with other people. Not brutally honest. That is usually a form of aggression, dressed as virtue. Honest in the sense of not maintaining positions he no longer holds, not pretending comfort he does not feel, not performing a version of himself that has not been accurate since before the test. And he carries something that cannot be faked and cannot be transferred. The knowledge that he has been genuinely pushed, genuinely shaken, genuinely uncertain about the outcome, and that he found something in himself in that moment that was sufficient, not perfect, not heroic, sufficient, and available the next time the wait arrives. There is no easy path from the earth to the stars. The path is not easy. It was never going to be easy. But the man who has already walked part of it, who has already found out what he is made of under real conditions, is not starting from the beginning. He is starting from somewhere that most men never reach. And that starting point, used correctly, is not a consolation prize for what the test took. It is the actual prize, the one that was only available through the test itself. Where the blueprint begins. The blueprint does not begin with goals. It does not begin with a plan or a timeline or a list of things to accomplish in the next 90 days. It begins with a single honest question. What does the man who came out of that experience actually know that the man who went in did not? Not what did you lose? Not what do you wish had gone differently? What do you actually know now that you did not know before? About yourself, about people, about what holds under pressure and what does not, about what you value when there is no performance required and no audience watching. That question, answered with full honesty and without the instinct to minimize what the experience cost you, will show you the precise material you are working with. And that material, specific, tested, real, is the foundation of every blueprint worth building. The Stoics did not promise that being tested would be fair. They did not promise that the difficulty would be proportionate to what was asked of you, or that the losses would be offset by equivalent gains. They promised something different. They promised that the man who meets his difficulty with clear eyes, honest assessment, and the deliberate choice to use, rather than simply survive what comes at him, will become someone that comfort alone could never have produced. That someone is available to you, not as a destination, as a direction. Start with the inventory. Take 1 hour this week and write down what you actually have now that the test produced, not what you lost, what you gained that no one can take, because it lives in what you know and what you have demonstrated. Write it down. Read it back. Let it be more real than the cost. Then ask what it makes possible that was not possible before. That question is the blueprint. Everything else follows from it. If this is the kind of thinking you want to keep building, this channel is here every week. Every video takes one idea further than the last. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.